Discord had an option where we could essentially have it that I take out my preview screen and I just have you and Cookie split instead of it showing. I see enough of myself already. So it'd be nice to just like cut my portrait out, but I haven't been able to find any options on it. I haven't done any deep digging, but
there is not an option just to save you the time.
Okay. Cool. I wasn't going to waste it anyway. I have been wasting no time since Fire Emblem came out.
Since you bring up Fire Emblem, I've been playing a little bit, but definitely not as far as you.
Have you picked your house yet?
I have like done little bit.
A little of all three?
All three. And I think just to be on the safe side, let's not talk about story. Leading up to that point, we talked a little bit off air about this, and I think maybe it might be prudent to cover some of that just so we have fully established that the podcast canon is as far as the Slack cast canon, so to speak.
Okay, yeah, fill me in. Or get me and everyone else up to speed.
I'm not trying to belittle the game in any way. Like that is not my intention, but it's rather just to point out how different games and like in particular Fire Emblem is kind of, I guess. Now, unlike a lot of people, my experiences with Fire Emblem are mostly concentrated towards the beginning of the series. So, Fire Emblem 2, Fire Emblem Gaiden 4. I don't remember playing 3 or which one 3 is. It's kind of weird. Like it's not like traditional 1, 2, 3. But what is commonly accepted as 4 is like my favorite Fire Emblem, and 5 is pretty close behind it.
Right.
And so like this might come off as weird, but I expect like a degree of writing, like a quality of narrative in like the era of video games that we're in now. And when I reflect back on like Final Fantasy in particular is a good showcase of like how Final Fantasy 1 basically has no narrative whatsoever. And then
15 is all a single narrative experience.
Yeah, I mean, like there are cutscenes in Final Fantasy 15 that feel movie-esque, right? I mean, to the extent where they basically released a movie and called it Kingsglaive, which, like, in the perfect world, Kingsglaive is literally a cutscene that you experience at the start of Final Fantasy 15. And, you know, Metal Gear is another, like, maybe not a great example because you don't see like the progression. You get Metal Gear 2, Metal Gear Snake's Revenge, quote unquote, and then you get Metal Gear Solid, which is like a movie in the way it is told. Right, it's supposed to feel like an action movie, and I think they do a decent job of actually getting that to happen. Fire Emblem goes from like a similar point where, you know, the first games don't have much of a script to them, and then by 4 and 5 they're adding a lot more of these additional text scenes, and you start to get more backstory, and you're starting to realize that the people writing the games actually have more information than they can actually put into the video game. And that's why you get like I actually don't know if this is a thing in Fire Emblem or not, but like the example of like that's why you get drama CDs and like additional novels or things like that to kind of help holster up the story. But obviously, like the medium itself, after the SNES cart, which had a pretty limited storage, when it hit PlayStation or, you know, CDs and everything from there on, and SD storage started to get a lot beefier, capacity increased, and likewise most video game creators started to increase the amount of dialogue they put into the game and so forth. Like Persona is a good example. Persona 1 and 2, just in the fact that all of those games have been made on a medium that didn't necessarily have a whole lot of
capacity.
Well, issues with capacity, right? I mean, like they slam in a bunch of stuff, but for the most part, those games are like not lacking cutscenes and dialogue and so forth. And when I say cutscenes, I guess I just mean dialogue. But so me jumping back into Fire Emblem, and especially with that introduction, like I almost expected it to be a little more drawn out. And maybe it's because I've been playing a game, Suikoden 5, that has essentially a 20-hour introduction before like the game starts to really open up. And that might be a little bit of hyperbole, but I was really surprised to see just how little they really offered you in terms of introduction into the world, aside from like narrator over essentially still images, and then like a very, very brief interaction with your father before finding yourself stumbling into battle with these three brats. I'm not saying it's bad, because I have a feeling a lot more of the dialogue is going to really start coming out here. But it was like kind of surprising at how quickly, especially compared to Conquest and Fates, you really got propelled into the Harry Potter simulator. Wait, excuse me, the Snape simulator.
Which is why I named my backup file, just in case I had to choose a different house from you, Snape. I chose the male character. Then I was like, oh yeah, I should probably just name this guy Severus Snape. Because he even looks like it. He's even got greasy, kind of like blackish blue hair. But who's to say that all of Act 1 is not a prologue in its own right, Neil?
Oh yeah, very, very much so. I guess the bigger point is that your history, albeit it's hinted, is like your background is probably actually important. It kind of doesn't matter what you did beforehand. It doesn't matter like who your childhood friend was. It doesn't matter who you took to medieval time villager prom. It's just like you are a 20-something, potentially 20-year-old. I did the math.
Your age is question, and
yeah.
your father left the Church of Saros 20 years ago.
21 years ago.
Yeah,
so at max, your character is 20 years old, and that's only if he met a woman within 3 months of leaving and got her pregnant.
Yeah, but you probably aren't even your father's biological child. You don't even share the same hair color.
That is very true. And everyone remarks about how different you... Not everyone, but a few people remark about how different you look.
Most people do.
So
they're like, how is he your dad? And you're like, this man that's raised me since a child, he seems fine.
Yeah,
your character is characterless in a certain way.
Yeah, it's so crazy. And I'm sorry, like I know we're kind of talking about like story without the ability to talk about story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but that's okay. It's important. Like, this game just came out. I think it's a good idea to maybe not jump headfirst into spoiling anything about the game story-wise.
I'm guessing that there's going to be opportunities for your character to further establish himself as a character, as opposed to just being a mannequin, I guess. Like, I don't know how else to describe, but like the silent protagonist is like a very traditional Japanese RPG trope. But I've found that like games
doesn't seem to fit for Fire Emblem though.
It doesn't. And so did you play the remakes of 1 and 2 that were on the Game Boy Advance?
Are we talking about Shadow Dragon? Or
maybe where you
that was
basically made a character?
I don't think, or is it when you make a tactician character essentially?
No, because I feel like they have a little more personality and a little more. The character, or the one I'm thinking of, is when you play along with Marth, but you make a shadow character that you...
Okay, I have not. Okay. I have not done that. But I have played Fire Emblem games that have given me a variety of customizability of characters. I really have enjoyed when I've been seated in the role of a very well-defined character, like Ike in Path of Radiance, which is my favorite Fire Emblem. And will remain my favorite Fire Emblem as long as I never go back and find out if it's as good as I remember or not. But I've also gotten to the point of, what is it? I think Awakening was the big introduction of a completely customized character that you really could actually add quite a bit of personality to some degree. So I've run the whole gamut, really. I've experienced also the tactician that you name, but literally like steps in and out of battle or quote unquote cutscenes 4 or 5 times throughout the entire game.
Sure.
So.
Well, so with that in mind, would you say that this protagonist maybe has like the least amount of personality amongst those custom
this
characters?
protagonist is definitely, I think, aptly described as mannequin-like. Your character feels empty in almost every interaction they have with other characters, and the amount of times that your character has the dialogue of ... or ellipses shows that your character is either just a very pensive and stoic character that even we as the player don't have that much insight on, or your character has nothing going on inside their head and probably should not be teaching students.
Very, very silent, right?
Yeah, it's silent protagonist in an awkward way. Like in The Legend of Zelda, playing Link is a silent protagonist, even though, he has his like characteristic yelps and grunts and groans as he's like hopping or getting hit. He doesn't really have much of an option to actually say anything outside of yes or no. And even then, like some games have it limited to the point where you never even really get much of a yes or no option. You're just reading through dialogue and the interaction is set in stone. He still has a lot more flavor and personality than Byleth, our main character in this game, who does get either or options on a fair amount of dialogue. But really, you're selecting the either or to come to the same conclusion, and one of those routes often will impress or increase your bond, and the other one will be neutral or decrease your bond. So
it's like
it's
you
like
walk
saying
into the
yes
cafeteria.
A or yes B.
Yeah, you walk into the cafeteria and they're like, "Do you want the roast pheasant?" And your responses are, "Of course I want the roast pheasant," or "Why wouldn't I want the roast pheasant?"
Yeah, it's like, "Oh, I love roast pheasant," or "Roast pheasant is gross, but I forgot my lunch money, so I'm still gonna eat the roast pheasant."
And like, there's a scene really early on, like when you're essentially accepting your teacher or your role as a professor,
professorship,
the professor of dark magic that constantly has their professors run away in fear. There's a choice in that cutscene where it's a singular choice.
There's multiple like that. I've found many encounters where it's like there's a single option and it's like, okay, why don't you just have my character say it then? Like, I don't need to hit the A button for it.
Right. And the other thing, too, is that in other... I think there might have been a couple Fire Emblem games where you basically were silence as well. But the reason they're able to pull that off a little more gracefully is because
the lords do more talking for you in some of them.
Yes. And so with that in mind, you have a concrete, or like you have a fixed cast that, might change based upon the story, but the game is always going to progress. It was written to have those characters in mind, whereas this game is going to be a dynamic cast. So like your voice as portrayed by your comrades is going to potentially change tone quite a bit between those. And before I use that as like a segue to talk about the three houses and get into this, a little bit of their story and their gameplay, I wanted to bring up Suikoden 5 and Zelda, and both have really, really well executed protagonists. Like Ocarina of Time, for instance, was like a period where you weren't able to do too much in terms of showing off like advanced facial expressions and so forth. But I mean, despite like the fact that I think most people really do not like Navi does play as a good ancillary voice for the main character, for Link. While she's not saying what Link is thinking, like she is expressing the questions that Link or the player might have about situations, or express like the very basic thoughts that someone in his place may have. And granted, like there's not a whole lot of dialogue for Link for that matter.
But his emotional state also gets expressed by his physical interactions with characters oftentimes. So they have there's dual effect going on between Navi and Link, and they're essentially demonstrating two different, like Navi may be the more vocal interaction, but Link actually demonstrates the more like emotional and physical interaction with each character, and it makes for a very fun duo.
And when you think about, like, I at some point want to show you like a cutscene or two of Suikoden 5 just to illustrate this. Suikoden 5 looks worse than Fire Emblem, but they are both like anime in terms of aesthetics. But Suikoden 5 does like a much better job of giving the protagonist the silent, like completely silent. You don't even have thoughts for yourself. Like there's no parentheses. Boy, I'm sure hungry for these pork chops or something. None of that. It's literally the only time you get dialogue from the protagonist is from your choices. And when you select the choice, he doesn't actually even say it either. So it's just implied that you say something to that extent, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that game's like way more successful at giving the character personality based upon facial expressions, and then, like, granted, they can't necessarily do this if they wanted to keep their budget on the lower side, but they did mo capture for all of their like close-up cutscenes. As a result, like body language alone and just the small details to like the protagonist nodding in affirmation to someone else, or his sidekick essentially saying something, like those things absolutely do a much better job of like portraying personality through the protagonist, or through a silent protagonist, which leads me to like a really quick point that the cutscenes in, or at least some of the more simple like talking cutscenes within Three Houses.
Yes.
It's rough because like you can tell that's an area they did not focus on so much, because you just realize everyone's in the same idle animation. Like not identical, but they have that pattern going on where they like their shoulders move forward and then backwards, forward and backwards to represent like them breathing. And it's crazy how a game made in 2019 can look worse than a game made in 2007 just based upon the animations of characters.
I mean, we should probably address it right away. Fire Emblem Three Houses looks like utter dog shit, in my opinion. And I so far actually haven't seen that detract from my enjoyment of the game at all. But I happened to notice, I was like, oh, you know what? I actually remember Path of Radiance and even Radiant Dawn, the previous console games for the GameCube and the Wii respectively, looking a lot better than this in how they presented it. Yes, they had greater graphical limitations, but they worked with them in, I think, in a more effective way.
I almost think it's what happens when you have a developer so focused on a less powerful platform or like, I'm just going to say it, like a mobile platform for generations. And I know Path of Radiance isn't that long ago, but I don't think they made a Wii U game unless they were directly hands-on involved with Fire Emblem, Sharp, Shin Megami Tensei, whatever that, Tokyo Mirage Session.
Yeah.
Which also had some issues in regards to like the polish or the finer sides of things. There's also quite a bit of slowdown that I experienced running around certain parts of the monastery. Just to check our dates, Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn, the last console Fire Emblem that I can remember, released in North America in 2007. It is 12 years ago. Yes.
And if you pull up a screenshot, you'll be able to tell it actually looks really quite good when you compare it to the Switch version. I think the character models definitely look better in this game, but environments and whatnot, I don't think that there's that distinctive a difference.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Back to what you were saying. Sorry for the interruption.
Oh no, you're fine. I really think it it's like prudent to talk about this because I think we're experiencing the same thing with potentially at least with Pokemon Sword and Shield. Like everyone's surprised that there's all of these drawbacks to the game, at least that we can see from promotional material and previews and whatnot, and some hands-on experience, I think, from E3.
Mm-hmm.
But should we be surprised, given the fact that Game Freak, the primary developers, have never made
a console game? Really?
Right.
Well, I guess they were a part of what the Pokemon Coliseum, Pokemon Stadium.
I don't think they were. I think they contributed in regards to providing some assets.
Right.
But I
And
actually
obviously
think
the
it was a
license.
different company that I can check it real quick.
That'd be good, yeah, to look up Coliseum and Coliseum DX, because those were the two console games that came out for the GameCube.
So the developer of Pokemon Coliseum was Genius Sonority.
Mm.
Not to be mistaken with Genius Sorority, which I imagine is quite a bit different. And they also did Pokemon XD, Pokemon Battle Revolution, Pokemon Shuffle, the Denpa Men. They came by Wave. I'm literally just naming off everything that comes out here. But so yeah, all of these GameCube titles apparently were done by a different developer entirely. So, and actually, Pokemon Let's Go, who developed that? Oh wow, actually, hold on a second. It was Game Freak. But I imagine the scope of Pokemon Let's Go is vastly smaller than Pokemon Sword and Shield.
I would assume so.
In any case, Three Houses, the name at which it dictates that there are essentially three choices or paths you can take from the onset of the game. Very early on. So early on that like
Battle or first battle.
Yeah,
right?
After the first battle and a bunch of dialogue. But kind of not dialogue. A bunch of running around and talking to NPCs, basically. You have to make your choice between the three houses. The Black Eagles, the
Blue Lions.
Wait, no, Black Lions, Blue Eagles.
No. It is Black Eagles, Blue Lions,
Is it?
Golden Deer. I know this for a fact.
I feel like I get them mixed up because lions are typically the more fierce ones.
Oh, they're
more
still
evil
fierce.
ones.
They're frigid because they're from the cold north.
Do you feel like there is a good guy in that bunch?
I know that my house that I've selected definitely does not contain a good guy for its leader. I have a feeling that maybe the most deceptive good guy is actually the Blue Lions leader, because I also have some very, I think, well-founded suspicions on the Black Eagles leader, who is definitely the most popular character to be picked, because with the online accessibility function, you can see the most deployed unit and the MVP of battles, and number one spot, at least since I've been playing Friday night, has been Edelgard almost every single time, the leader of the Black Eagles. And so I think people are very sold on taking the Black Eagles, including Cookie.
So spoilers leading up to legitimately the choice, or maybe 5 minutes after the choice that you make. And I only say that because I have a feeling that some of the foreshadowing that they've done is very on the nose. But even straight up to the introductions of the characters, your protagonist, you get a choice to think about the three different characters, and the protagonist basically sets all of them up for failure. So you think about Edelhart, and he's like, well, something, but it feels like she's judging me every second. You think about Dimitri. I don't recall what he said about Dimitri, but I think something about I don't remember. It was something equally damning in regards to maybe I can't trust this person. Then he gets to Claude and he's like, he's got a warm smile, but it doesn't match his eyes at all. And I'm like, okay, great.
Yeah, that's
I guess.
for Claude. Yeah.
I guess everyone's a villain in this game, and that's again not knowing anything about what happens. All of the very basic information I've gotten from talking to people make me believe that the Black Eagles or the Empire is likely going to become like an antagonist for the other two sides.
I think so.
And they already say, like, from the get-go, someone in the church says that the Empire and the church have like really rough ties. So I'm like, all right, well, that's potentially something. Like, Fire Emblem does not have like very complex storylines. So when there's any foreshadowing at all, much like how
It's
your
heavy-handed.
your father is like, I'll try and figure out what, the archbishop wants with you here. Like,
Yeah.
obviously something's afoot. So
Yeah, don't trust the church blindly. And then literally, I think the next time I talk to the holy woman in the church, she's like, anyone who will dare defy the church must be purged. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that seems like this person seems a little risky to do business with. It's nice when you're essentially given the foreshadowing, like, hey, guess what? Every single one of the people you choose, they're going to have, like, they've got a dark side. You don't know what it is yet, but you know it's there. That way, whenever I assume Act 2 happens and they ultimately turn and they war amongst one another, because that seems like the most likely outcome, there's some sort of precedent, and it's not like, oh, these three great friends and noble people from 5 years ago all of a sudden decided to go to battle. It's like, oh, they've had ulterior motives, or they've had motivating factors that we were just scratching the surface of when we first were introduced to them.
right. And the other thing too, spoiler to a game mechanic, but it seems like, so you can actually recruit the minor characters of other houses to your house.
Right.
So when I found that out, that's when I immediately went back to my choice save, the save I have right before the choice, and I'm like, all right, now I don't have to really think about
Which crew you pick.
right. I can take whoever I want from another house, assuming I grind it up or something. I'm not sure what the mechanic is there yet. So that
You have to meet requirements either on what stats you have. Like, sometimes it's as easy as like higher level to recruit somebody. Other times it's a stat, like you need better strength. And other times it is a skill, like you need a B in swordsmanship.
So what is there a way to raise your stats outside of leveling up?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. I mean, goddess icons, seraph robes, all the old like stat boosting items are back in this game. Dragon shield, talismans, stuff like that, I believe will make an appearance.
It's just that in a game that does not have natural progression, like your level and your stat progression through level ups has a somewhat random element to it.
Right.
You have a growth rate, but there's a level of RNG based upon your level ups.
If you rolled squat a couple times, you could miss out on a key level up or a key attribute to get somebody. Like, if you need to meet a strength 20 threshold and you've only gotten to 19 before the end of the recruitment period, you're out of luck.
Which, like, that, there's a degree of like BS in that, because now I want to go back and only get good level ups, because I've gotten a few where Byleth, or whatever the main character's name is, a default name is like, oh man, I don't remember what he says, but the character is disappointed in their level up because they only gained like 1 or 2 stats. And every time that happens, I'm just like, fuck, man.
Especially because this is the first time that you being proficient at things affects your party as a whole.
Yep.
And your ability to impact your party. So like Byleth having a slow start or not being very good at a variety of things ultimately means that you're kind of shoehorned into just a couple specialty areas. I've been dealing with that recently. I went for the Dark Souls min-max approach at first, and it's like, okay, this is what I'm immediately good at. I'll continue to increase these skills so I can be very good at it. oh, wait, now I need to teach this person how to use a lance, and I don't know how to use a lance. That's not good.
You have to go with the quality build, right?
You absolutely
You have to be
do.
good at everything. So get ready to like save scum until you gain +1 in almost every stat each time you level up.
It seems like a waste. I'm trying to approach it in the very happy-go-lucky. I'm going to like move fast and break things, and then I'm going to try a different house character for like New Game Plus or my second playthrough.
I'm trying to keep that mentality too. Like I did go back, I did load and then start to this is how I have multiple house saves started, essentially, because I wanted to figure out like, well, who, like, you know, what is the best approach? Like, what characters out of the 3 protagonists do I like the most? And then it occurred to me, I don't think I like any of them so far. But that's because they are given very polarizing personalities. But in addition to that, though, too, it's interesting because, like, if you wanted to think about like a good party, which I'm assuming like whoever is in your house by the end of the school phase is essentially who you take into the rest of the game.
I think
like,
so.
Maybe you want a fast sword guy, like, you know, someone skill and speed based. But that also means that your character has to get enough of those stats or whatever they require to even recruit that person to begin with.
And now you have 2 swords masters. And do you really need 2 swords masters? Well, I've proven that you can use 6 effectively in Fire Emblem before.
Yes.
So.
I mean, again, with limited Fire Emblem knowledge, because this game is actually radically different from the Fire Emblems I'm used to. Even more recently, Conquest, Birthright, and Fate, or not Fate. Whatever it is.
I think it's radically different of every Fire Emblem I've played in the flexibility of each individual unit.
Magic is no longer a book that you're tearing pages out of to cast spells.
Oh, it's so nice. No, instead it's a much like smaller pamphlet, but you can bring a new pamphlet to battle every time.
You have all the pamphlets in your closet. You can only just take one at a time.
Exactly. I really like it.
But my whole point, though, is that now as a mage, like, if you're a pure mage, all you're going to be able to do is, it seems like, cast a spell like a very low amount of times in comparison to past games. And then you have to switch to like a secondary weapon, which might not be effective at all.
Their power seems very strong, though.
Yes, that is true.
The spellcasters I've used so far have been very strong, and I'm willing to bet that not spoiling anything about the game, but I'm willing to bet that there are characters that are actually built to create some weird class combos where maybe you do have a magic and like sword wielding character, or an axe and a magic user, like a split. What would you say? A split specialization between both strong magical offense and strong physical offense.
Well, there's the crest system is also going to potentially help that, right? Because the crest system is more or less like holy lineage, except it doesn't pass through in the same way. It's kind of more like DNA and recessive traits. Like,
yeah,
because you have a kid doesn't mean they're going to have the crest that you have, but they might have the crest, or his kid might end up having the crest instead.
Right.
So I have a feeling, and then, I have a feeling like that's going to play a very similar role to lineages that other games have had in the past.
Except that we probably won't get we won't get like children characters or like next generation characters.
No, that is true. I imagine that's the same, or I imagine that's the thing. I imagine that the time jump that inevitably happens at some point and everyone upgrades their appearance, right? Chin strap.
Right. Yeah, chin strap, eye patch, or like horn crown.
So, I mean, you know, it's hard to grow a horn crown. But
the chin strap is actually the most difficult. You actually don't have to put any effort into the whole eye patch thing. You actually lose biomass in order to get the eye patch.
But so with that in mind, I imagine that a lot of these young kids that we're teaching right now will probably be like adults, and it won't make you scratch your head nearly as much having this kid with cyan hair holding a heavy spear when he might hopefully be like a more sturdy, strong person later on. I don't know. We'll see on that. It's the calendar system is not what I expected it to be either.
It's much faster than Persona, in my opinion. Like day-to-day Persona, a month is a fair slog of time. Even though you're not actually experiencing like every single day in Persona, normally there's always, intermittent days where there is just a cutscene or a dialogue that takes up the whole day on the calendar. In this one, it really is like you start Monday, and unless any surprise or hidden events are fit in between the Monday through Friday arc, you immediately progress to Saturday and then Sunday. And so really the number of free days to do something are few and far between. I definitely expected there to be a lot more time spent in a month, but the months go by much faster than anticipated.
And I don't know if I'm necessarily let down by that, because when I think about it, I think to myself like, man, that would be a lot of running around and talking to people. And the game does a lot of good quality of life and not even improvements, because it's the first time they've had like an interactable map, like an open room as opposed to world map, right? But like it is executed pretty well. Like there is a lot of dead time running around from person to person, but like the map is really well illustrated. And they also have speech bubble icons by any characters, NPC or otherwise, that you haven't talked to. And as soon as you talk to that person, that disappears. And you also find out that there's never a reason to ever talk to anyone twice in a row, because they never have sequential conversations. Yeah. And then they even go so far as to have the different characters with different colors representing whether or not they're in your house, if they're an NPC or if they're part of your house. Like these are all really good, really good design elements. They also let you know.
Yeah, they also let you know if interacting with them will actually use up any of your time. So you can go and get every errand done if you want to, and then decide to allocate your time, as opposed to accept a quest only to find out that accepting it has taken one of your precious 2 time tokens that you have before the end of the day, which I did on accident the first time I played, and I actually just immediately hopped back. Because when you only have 2 options and there's like 4 things to do at the beginning of the day, you have to be very conscious of what choice you're going to make with your time.
Which it's interesting because it feels like time is so critical, and like you don't have free days that you can go and watch a movie to increase your strength stat, your charisma stat, or whatever.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me feel like this game is less Persona and maybe more. Oh God, what was that game?
Animal Crossing.
I mean, kind of. Except technically with Animal Crossing,
except time doesn't matter at all in Animal Crossing.
Yeah, because time is actually happening in the real world, right?
Yeah.
So you can do everything you ever imagined you wanted to do within one day. In fact, like I know one of the common things people would do playing the 64 version was that they would actually just manipulate the clock forward a day when they wanted to progress with the not story in Animal Crossing, their own town's narrative, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, I guess I do kind of wish that there were like the gameplay side of Fire Emblem, which, by the way, because I'm just wanting to take it easy, I'm gonna be jumping between this and like 3 other games. I did turn on casual mode, and I am firmly saying that is the way I'm going to play this game, because otherwise every other old game that had permadeath anyways, it's like whenever someone died, all that just meant was I was going to load a save and hopefully get the RNG for that crit this time so they don't die. So or more accurately, I would load the save state ZSNES all the way there. But I wish there were like almost even a mode that would just allow you to do everything you wanted or at least
Mm-hmm.
give you more time. And maybe that just means we have to prioritize the professor level. I don't remember what they call it, but the teacher level first, so you can
No,
get
I
more
think
skill
it. Yeah,
units.
I think it is professor level. And you get some like random item drops that if you're exploring around actually boost it quite a bit, which is a nice touch. I will say to the casual option, they did add, and I'm sure it already has been demonstrated to have thematic purpose, but you essentially have this chrono pulse where you can take steps backwards in time. So if you lose a unit, and I'm doing the classic mode where if they die, they die, but I'm using the chrono pulse, and it seems to be like I think I get 3 uses in a fight, and that seems like a fair amount of like redos or oopsies. And so I'm going to be playing this game where if I can't save them with the chrono pulse, I'm just gonna have to call it. I'm gonna have to call it a day and say goodbye to whatever beefy boy gets put down because I got too zealous with the front line.
What else do you want to say for like the game in terms of like the calendar, the day-to-day stuff? Like, do you feel like it's actually a good improvement over past games that really didn't have any sort of exploration element?
Right, where instead, if you're doing anything like this, you're just doing it at the like base of operations menu. I actually don't mind it. It's fine. I thought it would be tedious, but honestly, the fast travel option and all of the mini map information that's available, as well as the level of like granular detail you can have on the mini map, has kind of it's routed any sort of criticism I would otherwise start to develop, because if I don't want to run all the way across the hall, I can very quickly load into that area and spend 2 to 3 seconds, let's say 4 to 5 seconds on a loading screen, and I'm never worried about like, where do I find this character or what do I do, because I can find them on the mini map and I can see if I need to talk to them or not.
Which that brings up the one surprise I have. I'm not playing off of an SD card or a cartridge, quote unquote, and maybe that's why. But occasionally the load times are like way longer than I would expect.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I downloaded mine to some internal memory. I think it's a micro SD card that I put in, and it's been quite fast. Maybe for loading battles. I think battles are definitely the longest load times.
It could be that. To the extent where I actually figured out that your loading character icon, the pixel version in the corner,
responds to motion controls.
And also responds to button presses too.
Oh, really? I didn't.
Yeah.
I knew that they would jump if you hit B, but I just knew that you could use the internal gyroscope to make them run left or right depending on how you're turning the controller.
Oh, okay. So that's how I get you. Interesting.
Yeah. It's very fun because then you can try and run and match the loading bar or hop over the loading bar, it's dumb, but like having a simple thing that you can do on a loading screen is such a it's such a clever tactic to let someone relieve their boredom that otherwise 10 seconds of nothingness would do.
Yeah. I remember.
Yeah, the surprise events on the calendar are pretty great too. I like that you can just pay a 200 gold price in the initial part of the game to give people flowers on their birthday, or that there's a surprise conversation that can just appear on a Wednesday afternoon and you can like essentially have dialogue and bonding outside of battle. They've also been a lot more forgiving about the let's see, what is it? About the bond about the bond range for units in this game. Instead of units having to be like immediately adjacent in the north, south, east, or west square of you, I think they can be within a little bit more of a diamond shape that may extend like 2 squares out or something, which is very convenient, because one of the biggest nuisances of the bond system in previous Fire Emblems is it's just like, okay, there's this single corridor, and unless I pair my units together, like there's just no way that I can actually get them to build much of a bond at all, and it's not tactically smart for me to do, like, to try and micromanage both that and not having my unit die.
Right.
So it's much more forgiving in a way that I think is reasonable.
I think the bond range is based upon attack ranges. So that is to say, you could be on the opposite side of a bandit, but because the person that you're
attacking the same
bonding with
bandit?
is also an attack range of the bandit, that's providing support, quote unquote.
Ah, that
So-
makes sense. It's like a flanking option.
Yeah, and so that's why like mages and archers tend to
Bond
have
faster.
better opportunities to bond. Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, yeah, I'll have to keep an eye out for that. I may examine it a little further.
I wonder how different the games are, like if the paths really break off into extremely different directions, or if you're
It would-
going to have like the main story, like the major story points are always going to be played by each house. Like let's say there's an event where again, like I feel like the situation presents itself with only so many different things that could happen. So like I apologize if I guess right, but let's say there's an event where the monastery gets attacked. Or like
no,
taken over.
that sounds impossible.
Right? Like, I mean, that seems like the absolute thing. Like, at some point, the monastery gets overrun. Like, does that happen? If let's say it's later in like after time jumps or whatever, does that end up happening in all three stories, and you have a very similar fight each of the three times, minus some palette changes?
Right. You're asking, is each leader or like is each scenario interchangeable with whoever you chose? And so it's like Byleth and leader of house A, B, or C does event 1. And event 1 doesn't change, just house leader A, B, or C changes.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe the enemies in event 1 are all red. But if you play with A, then they turn out to be blue instead.
Yeah, and if you pick C, then they're red again.
Because, like, so I'm assuming quite a bit of the beginning before, like, the branches really start to change, I imagine, are going to be somewhat similar, like the school life portion.
I think they are more or less interchangeable right now.
It's just like a huge time commitment to go into that and get to the postgraduate time jump.
But
only
that's why they have
defines-
all this autopilot features too, if you want.
Yeah, true. I don't know.
It may come in handy. I've never used autopilot. We may just be control freaks from playing the original Fire Emblems, where like choosing the wrong square was like committing yourself to an extra hour of gameplay potentially. So
Yep. Choosing the wrong square goes from like annihilating the enemy to like being up front. Like
you lost
limited-
your best unit. You lost your
Yeah.
favorite character. Yeah.
So I don't know. It's fun so far. I have
having a
criticisms
blast.
for it, obviously, as we heard at the start, but like I don't want that to take away from the fact that like I'm really enjoying this game so far.
I would have to agree. I think my like one sentence description that I've given friends so far is like, looks like shit, plays amazing.
And it doesn't look.
The cutscenes are nice, but I think everything else actually looks really bad.
Yeah, it's weird because like the graphics, like the time or the points at which they put time into the game, the character models,
they look nice.
They look really nice, but it's damning when we look back to games from 2007 and actually see like as a cohesive visual aesthetic, those games actually work better than Three Houses.
You can see where time and effort was skipped, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because they've skipped so far on the least impactful part of the game, which if you're under the gun for a time constraint and you have to say, well, we can make these textures nicer, or we can really polish up like the rest of these like menu interactions or quality of life improvements, please let the textures look terrible. Make sure that the game on a functional level is good, and I think you're going to satisfy a lot more people.
And with as many criticisms as I can throw at the exploration element of it, like I really do think as a whole it's beneficial because it like it gives you some credence of the scope of this monastery. Like I think that is one of the big intentions, is that they wanted you to feel like you were like part of the church, or part of the academy, the officers' academy, I guess, technically.
Yeah. Which is going to make your betrayal against the church hurt even worse when it inevitably happens.
I mean, I figure the plot will be that the Empire and Kingdom will be at odds. I still don't know from like the dialogue what the Golden Deer are going to do, unless it's basically Claude wants to take this opportune time to gain more power. Because that makes sense too.
Exactly. And while the two are distracted with one another, you look to exploit one of them. Or both. Who knows? Claude's been a very interesting character. I enjoy the personality of someone who's willing to say the quiet part loud just for fun. Like, oh, should I poison the other schools' food for our big battle that's coming up?
Oh, did he say that?
Yeah, he threatens to poison everybody's food. He's just like, if we're not up for this battle, we can always take alternative approaches to securing victory. And I mean, he also, what is it? He gets introduced as like they get attacked by bandits, and he essentially tries to leave them behind as bait so he can get away. He's amazing. He's the ultimate tactician.
Which is why, like, I could not pick him. I was just like, this guy...
He has no honor.
I don't even think it's that. I think he actually sees the benefit of if the other two get killed. Or no. Because we're talking like the very start. He runs from the bandits. No, he runs hoping that he'll have a clean getaway.
Exactly. But like, he's using them as bait. He's abandoning his friend to the bear. Metaphorically.
Then it turns out when the two end up following them, they end up leading most of the bandits away from the actual group.
Yeah.
So like it makes me it makes me question Claude's personality. Like, is he one of those types of people that is like joking, not joking?
Yeah.
Where like he passes something off as he'll essentially show off this comical side that is like a dark humor when it's actually what he wants to do.
Right. Or is it the alternative in which his dark humor is it's inauthentic? Like, he doesn't actually mean
to like
it.
the actual virtue inside.
To the tender softy that actually exists beneath the surface. Either one's actually very interesting, because either way, he's very entertaining as a character who's like, I'm a shyster. You just don't know if it's like true to my nature or if it's antithetical to who I actually feel internally, which is just so much fun to try and figure out. And the storyline so far on that end, the character interactions, I don't know how much nuance you will get to find behind Dimitri or Edelgard, but I know for Claude, like, the majority of his interactions are all about like, I have secrets, you have secrets, let's trade secrets. Like, I want to learn more about you, and I'll give you a little glimpse into the enigma that is me in exchange. Like, he's so transactional in such a like charming way.
What kind of secrets does Byleth have?
I have a green-haired
voice in my head.
Yeah, Byleth's secrets are all ... So we don't know. I think there's a lot to Byleth that we're the main character. I think maybe it's redundant or stupid for me to say this, but of course Byleth has some unknown origins, and that's why our name is ... and why we're bound to a character who I presume is possibly an incarnation of the goddess or something. And there's so little information about our bland characterless character that maybe it's intentional for us to get a lot more information later on.
Weird thought that came to my mind as I was like going through the roster or interacting, going through the roster and so forth, was that, is everyone with green hair affiliated to the church in this game?
It does seem that way, doesn't it?
And like Fire Emblem is not shy about hair colors because like for the longest time, blue was like the
The
ubiquitous
royal.
good guy royal hair color. Yeah. In some of the games, if you had red hair, you were basically either a bad guy or
Or a
descended
thief.
from a
Yeah.
bad guy, like
Yeah.
attached to the bad guy family. So I mean, that's why like I'm starting to think that like green hair is going to be very symbolic of an important bloodline. Actually, I did forget the most important topic of this entire game, given that we are both men, adults that would find it maybe at times
The inappropriateness of tea time.
yes. So my question rather is, are you pursuing Manuela?
Oh, she's so far the best joke character in the game because as I've gotten to know Manuela, you find out that she is like, she is woefully unlucky in love, and essentially all of your bonding moments with her are post date with someone who's been like, "Wow, I never want to see you again," even though she's like conventionally an incredibly attractive character, and like as a professor of the academy, like she should be very desirable, I think, from all of her basic traits. But
She has tenure.
Yeah, she has tenure. But the more you get to know her, she's a little lazy. She's very like slobbish, slovenly. Man, I had to come up with that adjective right. She's slovenly. She's not focused. Like she's just a very weird character, and I don't know if you can actually. Well, I'm playing as the girl character actually. Now that I think about it, for the Golden Deer, yeah, I'm playing as a female avatar, and then when I pick up Dimitri or whoever I play for the next playthrough, I'm gonna play as the guy. So,
well, you can actually have certain same-sex relationships in this game.
mm-hmm.
So who knows?
So maybe Manuela just is, she's barking up the wrong tree. But I actually haven't progressed any sort of. I don't think I've progressed any of the bonds with Byleth past C for anybody yet. So did you
play any of it as a male protagonist?
No, I haven't really yet.
So I don't know if it's the same as with the female protagonist, but Manuela lays it on pretty hard.
Oh, she doesn't for the female protagonist, as far as I can tell.
So, not the best One-san character I think we've met. I think Persona 5 like tops the older lady character trope really well.
With your teacher or your physician,
the nurse,
or your like just go down the list.
Yeah,
your fortune teller, your
oh yeah, she's older too.
Yeah, there's so many older women in Persona 5. But we all know it's not about actually being older. It's about that old woman personality, and that's why Class Prez is my vote for Persona 5.
Wait, Class Prez? You mean
what's her name? Queen.
Makoto.
Yeah,
That's
Makoto.
Right.
Of course, yeah. Makoto. Sorry, I forgot your name, but I mean, she's the obvious choice.
I don't know. I think the most enjoyable approach in those games is to fly solo and then have to hang out with your boys on Valentine's Day.
No, I mean that probably is the most entertaining way to play the game for sure. The alternative is the sleazeball route, in which you max relationships with all of the women.
Feels too bad for me. I'm guessing that is not going to be a thing in Fire Emblem because I don't think they focus on that element as much.
They don't let that happen, yeah.
Which is a shame because I would love to get the
sleazeball commander.
No, I'd love to get the event where I'm really bad with these names. At least the names outside of my house,
right?
Or the house I've been playing the most so far. But like the the event where on Valentine's Day or whatever they would call it in Fire Emblem, you get to hang out with the blonde guy that eats a lot and the guy that's
Raphael, which I have renamed Charlie because he's a spitting image of a close friend of mine. He's just way buffer.
It's just you and him at the diner, along with the guy that's so up on himself about being the next prime minister. That's what your Valentine's Day event should be.
That buff guy, by the way, you really should recruit. He is a delightful, he's such a fun character on the bonding dialogue. And he's also a great unit.
Oh, I plan on it. He seems like a gentle giant.
He absolutely is. He doesn't give a shit that his parents were murdered.
That's like, when I heard that, it's just like, it's such a horrible way to describe a friend. You're like, yeah, here's this guy. His parents are murdered, but he's still nice. You're like, what the fuck are you saying? Like, who actually in their right mind?
There's a great interaction in which another character in the house actually has they have some baggage with that. They feel as though they have some responsibility with his parents being murdered, and it makes for the most interesting support conversations. He's like, "No, it's all cool, bro. My parents got slaughtered. So what? I think I'm gonna go to the cafeteria now.
You want to get some food?
Do you want to? Yeah. Do you want to join me? Let's eat some lunch."
Only to find out when you hit a rank that his excessive eating and excessive working
is a coping
out
mechanism.
Yeah, exactly, and he can't deal with it, which is why
if only
he's so
I
big
had
and
been
strong
more
now.
swole, mom and dad wouldn't have died.
I could have reflected the knives off of my muscles.
Oh man, I could have flexed the venom out of my face.
Well, no emails. Actually, let me double check and make sure we didn't get anything through the course of this podcast, because that's happened once before.
Mm-hmm.
While I'm doing that, do you have any closing words about our early discussion of Fire Emblem Three Houses?
This game is so good that I almost forgot to sleep last night. I will continue to put in a unhealthy amount of time on it, and I can't wait to talk more about it next week as well. But I don't know. If I say any more about it, I'm concerned that the issue is it does start inching further and further into spoiler territory. And for people who haven't played the game yet, I think the story could really develop into something that could be pretty interesting and engaging. It's certainly laying the groundwork for that. So I'll be hesitant to spoil anything about it until we get to sort of the end of the game, which is hopefully a couple weeks later.
Yeah, I mean, given it's an 80 or 70 hour game,
you can't expect anybody to have completed it before we do, especially with the time I've been putting in.
We'll see when we get it done. How do you think Cookie will still be playing Fire Emblem Three Houses by next week? Is the real question.
Yeah, I'm actually not worried about him taking Edelgard because he probably won't try and make it to Act 2, which means that we can just pick up where he's left off.
Yeah. All right. If you have an email, if you have questions, comments, or corrections, you can send it into podcast@fancyramen.com. This is episode 127, part 2. I'm Neil.
I'm Cookie.
Scott sends his regards as the graceful loser of a tennis tournament. So I figure that's why we have two separate parts with two separate people.
Talking about one subject.
One subject? I'm color me surprised. Is that subject Fire Emblem Three Kingdoms?
No, I thought you talked about escape rooms last week.
We did talk about some escape rooms, I think, actually. Wait, did we? I'm blinking out slightly. It's hard because I also had an elaborate conversation with some people over escape rooms at work last week, and now I'm actually having a moment of confusion over what conversations we might have passed or had together.
Well, I
So-
do know that you guys more than likely talked about Fire Emblem Three Houses, which I will say that I am 12 hours in. So I have been doing like an hour a night. But I also wanted to mention briefly, talk about escape rooms.
Okay.
Because I did my first escape room in the state of Nebraska. It was like a 20%er. We finished with like 7 minutes to spare. It was a little bit simpler. Apparently, the one that we went to is built more for first-time escape roomers, not people that have done it a couple of times. But in regard to escaping that room that they locked us in, quote unquote, I found a beautiful game in VR that is called Don't Touch Anything. Excuse the noise in the background. Called Please Don't Touch Anything. And it is beautiful. Apparently there is a just regular 2D version of it, but it is a puzzle simulation. Excuse me, you're locked in a room with just a button, and it just says don't touch anything. So through a random series of pushing the button and doing things, panels start opening up. Apparently, if you touch the button, you first get a switch to flip. You flip the switch, and then everything kind of turns red. And then if you push the button again, there's a image of like a cityscape in the backgrounds. So you hit the button again, there's a big countdown timer. You see a picture of a nuclear bomb exploding, and your entire bunker like shakes. And you're like, oh, so I guess that's what that does. So then I reset, went back in, looked at everything around me. There are like hints and things just wandering around, posters on the walls that do say different things with different number combinations and things of that nature. And it's like, okay, well, only thing I could do right now is push the button. So I guess I'll push the button. Then I was like, oh, there's a little arrow, like just like a tiny outline of an arrow to the right of the button. So I pushed to the right of the button, and then a button appeared that was an arrow pointing in a diagonal direction. So I kind of followed that button, and another button appeared, and it kept going for a little bit. And then there was like this color puzzle that came up. So after I completed the color puzzle, it was like, okay. I pushed the button again, the big red button in the center, and the image of the city like separates, and your bunker is just constantly shaking. And then the achievement for finishing the game that way was a picture of the world, like a globe, a 3-dimensional globe that was like the Earth split in half, basically. So then you reset, and you just keep finding different ways to end the thing. One of them was I kind of was just looking around, taking my time, looking at every single thing without touching the button or anything. And the guy that told you not to touch anything that was going on his bathroom break, he comes back in and he's like, sweet, I'm back. Thanks for not touching anything. And then I had to reset again. I got a pacifist achievement for that. There was one achievement where he's got a bunch of paper balls on the ground. So I just threw all the paper balls away because I was kind of bored while still looking around. And then he comes back and he's like, oh man, you cleaned up after me. Thank you so much. My inspector would have fired me on the spot if she saw how dirty this place was. Got an achievement for that. Then reset, and it just kind of keeps going. I had to cheat a little bit after this portion because I was like, I don't know what else to do. And then one of the ways to end the game is to push the button 20 times. So I just kind of started tapping the button. After 6 times, a panel opens up and you get access to a screwdriver. After 15 times, another panel opens up and you get access to a hammer. Then after
But each
20
time
times,
you hit the button, like, isn't it when you hit the button the first time, that's when you destroy the world? So how do you prevent that game over state from happening?
so you hit the button. So when you first hit the button, a switch pops up. So obviously, out of curiosity, you
Okay.
flip the switch, and that's the nuclear apocalypse that can happen.
Gotcha. All right.
But the more times you hit so like after you hit the button 2 times, a different panel opens up that you gain access to, and the little arrow directional thing like disappears, so you don't have access to that anymore. So you eventually get like screwdrivers, hammers to access more panels and do more things, and there's just a bunch of different ways to complete the game. And I think I've only seen 4 or 5 endings so far.
So I'm curious, does the game acknowledge that you are not following directions when you start doing this? And then does that delay the guy from getting back to his desk? Or do you basically, can you get caught by the guy coming back to his desk while you're trying to figure out how to end the world in different ways?
So I haven't been caught by the guy trying to, like, because I actually did try, so I think the game does acknowledge that, okay, once you hit the button, he's not going to come back in, unless you say hit the button, then clean everything up, but he completely ignores the fact that you touched anything.
Okay.
But, so one of the panels that you can open up gives you access to a black light, and if you shine the black light on the door, it says he's never coming back. And then there's, like, handprints and what looks like someone's bloody body was dragged out of the room. There are a bunch of signs that just say touch everything. There are more numbers encoded and different kinds of like hints and clues and things. But so yeah, after doing the one escape room in real life, I decided to put myself in a virtual world and escape that room-ish. Not really, but do different things. I'm kind of hoping that, since after looking at screenshots of Please Don't Touch Anything, that this 2D version that I'm seeing that's kind of 16-bit-ish, I hope that that's on the iPad, because I would love to be able to play this 2D to kind of have more access to everything without having to like turn around. And unfortunately, the game does have its own little bugs and things, so sometimes it's a little bit hard to grab something, or like the screwdriver will disappear every once in a while, and then I can't gain access to it anymore without like peeking my head through a wall and kind of shimmying it out of the wall by using clipping errors.
Yeah, the typical VR like immersion breaking shit that tends to be there, unfortunately. But
yeah, so I was just, so it does have its issues and its bugs, but $20, not that bad of an experience so far. I've logged like 3 or 4 hours of just sitting in a room racking my brain over like puzzles and things.
I think that is about the same price that most of the job simulator, vacation simulator VR games go for. So when this gives you like interesting objectives too, I think that seems pretty reasonable in comparison.
Very much so. And I'll say I haven't got a chance to play Vacation Simulator. I did play a fair amount of Job Simulator. It's a different kind of entertainment, because Job Simulator is more of the fun, goofy side, the goat simulator type of thing. This is more of the, if you've ever played Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes type of tension of, okay, what am I going to do next? But instead you're not being timed on anything. It's more, okay, what the fuck do these numbers mean?
Right.
But yeah,
I'm curious if there are good escape room games in VR yet. Because that seems like a, I mean, I guess technically speaking, I Expect You to Die, is that the VR game where you're an agent? That's basically an escape room.
That is basically an escape room for each of those episodes, and it's a lot of fun. I Expect You to Die. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't played many like escape room type things in VR. I guess I have played it. I Expect You to Die and this. There was like a different one that I got a chance to play a demo for back on the PSVR called Static, Statik, where your hands. So since you're using a PlayStation VR, it was before it uses the actual controller, but your hands are like bound. So you can actually like see your hands are bound inside of this box. So as you're rotating the PlayStation controller, you're actually rotating your hands, and that's where your wrist would actually be. And you can see different portions of the puzzle box that you're trying to escape from, I guess. I only got to do a couple of puzzles in that demo, but that was pretty interesting. I'll have to check that out.
And it uses the mechanic that you're using a PlayStation or a DualShock 4 controller in a more meaningful way. So I can appreciate that.
Yes, because instead of being, what was it? Instead of being like you're using the PlayStation controller while playing Resident Evil 7.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you're not holding like an actual gun. You're holding a controller the entire time. This one's literally, okay, so now that my hand is tilted this way, the face buttons work because my right hand is up. Or these buttons work because of this hand because it's showing this hand, or now I can use these buttons.
Right.
So it kind of plays with that mechanic a little bit. Sorry, what were we talking about? Escape rooms?
Yeah, that was the start of this conversation. But
yeah,
I still have yet to go to an escape room, and the more I'm thinking about it, I don't think we talked about it during the first half of this episode.
I would be surprised if you did.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just filled with like an anxiety that because escape rooms are kind of more expensive than, let's say going to a movie, unless you organize like a big group, I'm worried that I'm not going to get the expectation that like has become established from doing so many like escape room style video games prior to.
Yeah, because definitely if you're expecting kind of the same like epicness of a video game escape room style, the actual escape rooms, I want to say the one here in Omaha that we went to is $15 a person.
Well, that's not bad.
Yeah. One we did,
I was seeing like even heavier prices than that if you're in small groups of people, I guess.
Yeah. The one we did in Georgia, I think was like $25 a person. But it was a lot more elaborate. There were people in costumes. The rooms did like more mechanical things. The one here was quite literally, they gave you a room with, they put you in a room and that you had access to all three rooms, and it was just a bunch of simple puzzles with magnets and things of that nature. Whereas the one in Georgia was like, okay, you knock 3 times loudly on this, and that pops open a door in this other room, and crazy things like that.
That's why it costs more. They have to pay the ninja that just waits for you to knock to open the door and then to teleport away with ninjutsu.
Pretty much.
Well,
so how have you been?
Not bad. I don't want to take up too much time since I already talked to a great extent in the last part, in the first part of this episode. But you said you'd played about 12 hours of Fire Emblem 3 Kingdoms.
Yes. Black Hawks forever. Ka!
Okay, so I started playing 3 different routes. All 3 different routes. And then I was told that there's New Game Plus, and that me doing what I was doing, which is playing multiple routes. I did not talk. I think I talked about this a bit on the last part. But the realization has since occurred that apparently doing that is bad because New Game Plus will basically
force you to take the other routes.
Right. I mean, well, it's going to make the other routes easier to get through faster. I don't know what gets carried through, but with any implication, New Game Plus can also mean different story things too. So who actually knows? But I did want to say, just for the disclaimer, that I think I'm 62 hours into Fire Emblem 3 Kingdoms now.
Good fuck.
And
I knew I was behind, but shit.
I think Scott at this point might be around 30-something. And I did end up going the Black Eagle route as well, since that is definitely, it definitely has like the best cast, in my opinion, collectively speaking.
Bernadetta, she's Bernadetta for the win.
Dude, Bernadetta. It's like I don't even care for Byleth or the protagonist's interactions that much with Bernadetta. It's fine. In fact, I think Byleth is pretty boring for the most part, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the enjoyment I get from that game is actually just the classmates' interactions with each other.
Oh my god, it's the best.
Yeah. But I really shouldn't say too much because like the things I probably want to talk about are definitely further in the game than the two of you have experienced thus far.
Well,
It's good.
Well, we can put a spoiler alert in for Scott because I don't really care about being spoiled because I don't think I'm going to beat this game. Honestly,
You have to get like 40 to 50 hours in before like the interesting thing happens.
that's when the 5-year time skip happens.
Well, okay, so I knew there was like a time skip or a jarring event. I didn't realize it was going to be 5 years.
Yeah.
Until there is some foreshadowing at one point where they're like, well, the Millennium Festival's happening and, you know, the year is like 1195 or whatever, right? Or
Yeah.
I don't remember, but like, no, I think I'm wrong there. But the significance is that every 100 years there is an event that happens, like a festival.
Yeah.
Well, there's a festival that happens every year, but it's like it is the convention / festival to end all conventions and festivals. It's like where, you know, your A-list celebrities all show up, blah, blah, blah. So when they mentioned that it was happening in 5 years, that's when it kind of occurred to me that, oh, that's how the time skip, that's what the time skip is going to be. But even prior to the time skip, a lot more of the interesting plot things with the main story really start to ramp up a couple months before then. And that jump is, we'll say, like, maybe the least significant part of the interesting events that happen.
Really?
So super extremely light spoilers. I'm not going to go into detail here. What
Yeah,
I'm
go
going
for
to
it. Hit me.
They're just
I like
critiques.
spoilers.
So things happen. I don't know how it works with everyone else, but I'm assuming the time skip is completely mandatory for all three paths. For the Black Eagles, though, the explanation is essentially after a big battle happens, the protagonist goes missing, and the protagonist ends up waking up basically drowned in a river. Like he wakes up washed ashore in a river outside of the monastery 5 years later.
Wait, did what's his name do it to us? What's his name definitely hit us over the head and tried to kill us, right?
No, I don't think. Wait, who's what's his name or what's her name or whatever? I don't know if you.
The main protagonist chick. Excuse me, not main protagonist chick. The head of the Red House. Her sidekick guy, the guy who's like would do anything for me.
Oh,
do
Hubert?
anything for her. Yeah, Hubert.
Dude, Hubert. You know, there's a lot of foreshadowing there. I don't know. I don't really know how the other routes go. I will spoil one thing for you. The game seems to really, I didn't determine this, so I did not like save scum, go back and find out. But there's a pinnacle moment in at least the Black Eagle path. It might happen in all three of them, in fact. Who actually knows? But I don't think it does. Just by the nature of what the intentions of each house represents.
Mm-hmm.
But you get a very important decision at one point during the Black Eagles route that basically has you either siding with one side or another side. And I chose the side that would least likely get Hubert to backstab or like to stab me in the back or take care of me, quote unquote, as you know, his support conversations say.
Wait, does old redhead dude, does he try to throw a coup against the one chick?
Wait, who's old redhead dude?
Oh my god.
You mean Geralt, your dad?
No, not Geralt's. The kid who's always vying to like beat the
Ferdinand.
Yeah, Ferdinand. Is that the thing?
Maybe you'll have to just see, Cookie. But in any case, though, like big battle happens. After the aftermath is that you go missing in action and you fucking wake up 5 years later. Which, like, maybe they're going to explain it more, but the way the writing is actually pretty okay throughout most of the game. Like, the mandatory writing. That is to say, the stuff that's not the conversations between characters and support events. But the cutscenes that happen whether or not it's exclusive to this route or all three routes, all that dialogue is like pretty okay through most of the game. But when you hit this 5-year gap or time skip, the game doesn't really do a great job, shall we say, integrating that event in with the rest of the dialogue. And like the characters are written in such a way that your disappearance apparently doesn't mean jack shit to some of them. Like, the conversation is never had between the main character and any character blaming him for disappearing for 5 years. Like, if a giant event happens in which it ignites major implications for the rest of the world, or at least the continent, and your teacher, who's like a big supporter or like a big role in all of this, ends up just disappearing for 5 years, when he shows back up, I feel like anyone should be like, what the fuck happened,
Teach?
Where were you? Why do you come back now? Like, we're fine without you, buddy. That sort of thing. And I like, the game does not ever approach that conversation. And I think it's kind of unrealistic, given that you have such a huge, vast, or like such a wide, vast character pool, that someone realistically should react that way. And when I say someone, I don't mean anyone in particular. I just mean that there should be somebody, some character should be pissed off that you left for 5 years. But no one seems to be pissed off that you're gone for 5 years, nor do they really speculate that much as to why you just now showed up. It's like everyone is instead just like, yeah, you're back. Awesome. Now we get to progress the story more.
So I have a question then.
Sure.
I'm going to go on a wild guess and say that you are playing classic mode, to where if a character dies, they're dead.
I'm actually doing casual. I didn't know how hard this was going to be, and I had not played a Fire Emblem game to completion in a while. So I was just like, I don't want to bum myself over it. That was before figuring out that the Divine Pulse is actually a
OP mechanic.
Yeah. Are you playing classical?
I am not playing classical. I am also playing casual because I wanted to experience everything.
Right,
and
exactly.
Lord knows I've gotten Bernadetta killed like 14 different times.
It's like, I kind of feel like that there's probably got to be some sort of tuning by playing casual as well, where like enemies might not be that strong, because I find most of the game to be like pretty trivial at this point, but not so it's not like hurting my appreciation or my enjoyment of the game so much that I feel like I need to go back and restart the game
again.
Yeah, for the 5th time or whatever. I mean, technically speaking, I just had a save point at the start where you made the choice and, you know, went down all the variations. And I like, the game is actually way more forgiving when it comes to min-maxing. If I didn't have to play 60 hours to get back to the point of where I'm at, I would have spent a lot less time focusing on building support time, I guess you could say, or no, excuse me. I spent so much time working to get my professor rank up to A+. And you actually don't even need to do it as quickly as I did it. Like, it's good to have your professor rank on the higher side as you progress through the game.
Because you get to do more things with your students.
Right. But actually, the game is not built in a way like, say, Persona 5 or any of the modern Persona games, where if you're not like taking into account at least a degree of min-maxing, that you're not going to get all of your social links or confidant levels. Mm-hmm. Like, this game actually seems way more forgiving in that regard. I don't know though. Like, how's your perception of the game so far? Because I think you're probably the least experienced with the series out of the three of us.
As this is my first Fire Emblem game, I believe. Like, I can't really think of if I've ever played a Fire Emblem, so this is my first one. It's not my first tactical RPG type game like this, because I've done my Tactics. Disgaea is one of my favorite series just for the writing alone. I am very happy that the battle portions of this game are so easy, because I could care less about those. I'm really, now that I'm getting more the hang of all the social aspects, to put into context where I am, I just got to the very first battle of all the, not the first battle of all the houses against each other, but the big one. After you already saved, what's her name, after she was kidnapped by the Black Knight.
Oh, okay, yeah. You're actually progressing at a pretty good rate.
It's pretty much just walking through all of the things, because I don't have to worry about everyone dying through the battles. So, like, the battles don't take very long, and I'm just enjoying, like you said, the conversations that the characters have with each other, the students' interactions with one another, because they're kind of hilarious. But no, I'm really enjoying the aspect of character conversations, the hanging out with people. Like, tea time is just so fascinating to me, because it's like, oh, it's this person's birthday. You can either get them flowers, or you can have a tea party with them. Like, I would love to have a tea party with this person. I want to see what they're interested in. Old girl with the white hair that's a knight, and she's super duper badass with a sword. That's got the holy relic sword.
Catherine.
Catherine, yeah. Not interested in anything that I thought she would have been interested in. I'm just like, so how's training going? She's not interested. What? That's all she talks about.
Yeah, there's like a degree of detachment between the topics that I think they're actually interested in and the topics that they're tea time interested in.
Yeah, and I'm just like, well, now I just need to find out. I'm going to pick a random thing. She's interested in this? Okay. How about this?
Is she
and shit?
Yeah, is she interested in the gossip or the couple, the possible couple? I don't fucking know. It's one of the weird topics.
Yeah, I want to say it was like something to do with couples. The only one that she liked about me, so I had a very short tea time with her, basically. But it's
Have you gotten the perfect tea time yet with anyone?
My very first tea time was a perfect tea time, and then I got to take pictures of said person, or like interact with said person while they were sipping tea, and it was very since I'm using a female professor, very very sensual, one might say.
Yeah, you get up from your chair and then look at them very closely, and then turn your head, or like move the angle at which you look at the character, and then you get close to their chest in some cases.
So I was having tea time with Dorothea.
Ah, yes.
And I will tell you, some of the conversations that you have with Dorothea later in like the confidant thing, I'm pretty sure you've already had these conversations of why she's getting with all these other dudes, and she could basically spend the rest of her life with me. So as a female teacher, I could still say that, and like little hearts appeared, and then she was like, wait a second, you're being serious? I never thought of that. Will they, won't they?
If there's an S rank by their name, that means they would be interested in Sweden that way.
Sweet. How old are all these students? Because no one's actually ever said an age of any kind.
So if you go to roster, your menu option of roster, you will see all of their ages, with a few exceptions.
Because I know not everyone knows their age. Like, I picked that I don't know my age.
Because you don't. Yeah.
Because I don't. Because apparently it's a lot better to tell the truth. Because when I first met the chick inside my head, I was like, I am a ghost. And she's like, you're not a ghost. Shut up. I'm like, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. I'm human.
You know, I got so excited when that choice came up, because I thought that, like, There's a couple JRPGs or specifically tactical JRPGs out there, turn-based, grid-based RPGs, in which the game opens up by basically giving you just a really weird survey, and you answer the survey, and then by the result of your answers, your character is determined from that point. Not necessarily like appearance and stuff like that, but like if there was a question of, where do you feel most comfortable in combat? Right up close or far away or in the middle of things, that would determine like whether you used swords or axes or if you used bows or magic, that sort of thing.
The classic, when you go to defend your friends, beginning of Kingdom Hearts games all have those 3 questions that they ask. So are you going to be more stronger in magic? You're going to be stronger in fighting, defense. Yeah, I got you. But no, this one was like, no, we don't play that game.
Yeah. It's weird to say the least.
But I will say that so far, as of right now, I know I mentioned it early, Bernadetta, she is my favorite by far. Like, just her reactions to everyone during the support conversations. I think she like passed out on her feet because she thought she was going to be killed. And it's just like, that's amazing. Characters are like
no one has any ill will towards her, and yet she interprets everything as aggression. It's pretty awesome.
So it's Bernie and Petra, the chick who speaks broken English or broken whatever language, who just happen to have like my favorite interactions, because Petra's always about like learning how to get better and do good, but since she can't speak very well, it doesn't come across that way sometimes. And then the people that are like critiquing her are always usually like the lazier students. And she's like, so you'll just show me, right? And he's like, yeah, I could show you, but I'm not very good myself. So just do it and you'll be fine. You're smart.
Oh, Linhart. I don't know how they pronounce it in English.
Yeah, Linhart. Yes, it is Linhart in English, and he is my 3rd favorite. He's my favorite male just because how lazy he is.
So what I'm gonna say, like slight spoiler, is that, but not really spoiler, is that Linhart has, I think, by far the absolute best and most interesting support conversations.
Oh my God, they're so good. He's like, when he's talking to, once again, the redhead dude who's like always 100% go. Let's do all the training. He's like, oh yeah, that'd be real interesting. You should tell me about that the next time when I'm not walking away. And then he just walks away. Then he just nopes.
I would recommend that if you happen to recruit any other students, or even if you don't, I guess, but like you should try and recruit the students at least that he has supports to outside of his class, because he has some real interesting conversations with some people that like I don't know how best to put it. Gives you a lot of valuable information relevant to the plot that you probably, it's not like you shouldn't have, but you wouldn't have if you did not have Linhart build relationships with these other characters. He's real interesting.
So I've got questions on how to really get people recruited. Mm-hmm. They say you need more charisma and faith, magic, or whatever, or strength and heavy armor. Is that the actual like teacher needing that, more of that stat?
Yeah, I believe so. Unless like everyone is wrong about that. You personally need that so you can teach him. But
okay, because like I got Sylvan by accident. Sylvain.
Oh, right, the ladies' band.
Yep, I got him I was just like, oh, recruit, and he's like, yeah, I'm down. Fuck it.
I think he likes reason and charm. So, have you been using black magic with your protagonist?
No, she just straight uses a sword right now.
I wonder how you got him then. Maybe the needs change.
I don't know,
desires?
but he was the very first person I asked to recruit, and he just accepted me, and I was like, okay.
Well,
So maybe it was like a gimme recruit.
Maybe there is another way to get characters, which I would say is maybe the easiest way to do it, at least on casual mode, and that's if you get their rank higher. The higher their support rank is with you, the easier it is to recruit that character, which I think is extremely important that they had that, because the reality of getting your protagonist to be specialized in 8 different fields is basically maybe impossible on your first time through.
Yeah.
So if you really like someone, don't even bother looking unless like you're already pretty decent at the stats that they like. Like, let's say it's strength and sword, where it's like, well, great. Like, that's basically what like standard ass protagonist gets, right?
Yes.
Like, you get those things regardless. You can probably recruit them without building their support level too much. But if there's someone that's just like off the wall, where it's like they want reason and they want the reason stat and they want flying, and it's like I'm not going to build flying. Screw that. That's like not optimal for my team. Just get them up to B rank, and then they will randomly, throughout the course of a given school week, they might ask you to join your class.
Okay, sweet. I'm really looking forward to getting Raphael on my team.
Dude,
The
Raphael's awesome, yeah.
Big burly dude. So I've been working heavy armor currently.
I missed out on Sylvain. I think he was the one recruit that I could have gotten that I did not get. So,
Yep, it was just my first one, and I was like, okay, cool. I got him in oh god, I've already forgotten the other guy's name. Him and the redhead dude from the Black Eagles, Ferdinand. I got him in.
but
So,
he joins you automatically since he's part of the house, right?
yep, Ferdinand and Sylvain. I both have them as riders right now.
Oh, okay. I get you, Cavaliers.
Yeah, Cavaliers, since they both were like, hey, I'm kind of interested in horses and shit. And I was like, all right, cool. I guess you guys are cleaning out the pen every week.
And they're so happy about it.
Pretty much. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm fine with this.
So another word of advice is that a lot of the classes actually don't force you to use the weapons that they specialize in. So Cavalier is a good example. It does give you bonus experience to spear, if I'm not mistaken, and then of course the riding skill. But if, let's say, Sylvain actually has a specialty in sword, they can use sword.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either. And upon playing classic Fire Emblem games, it's usually not that way. Like, if you're a class, like a sword fighting class, you can't use any other weapons.
Because you're a sword fighting class.
Exactly. But this game actually throws that out. And the only downside is that if you're a sword fighting class, if you want to use a spear, you can. You just won't learn or master the spear as fast as if you were like a soldier or whatever the class is that uses spears, which I think is actually amazing, because there is not a lot of ways to diversify a cast of what I think is there's 8 students per house, 3 houses. So from the students alone, you have 24 potential characters. And it's like, how do you differentiate the 4 people that by default become archer units? Well, you make the difference by having one have a sword specialty or sword strength, one having an axe strength, one having a ride strength, and one having a magic or healing strength as well. So because those units can use all those other things, even if they're an archer or sniper class, with the exception of magic, I think you have to have a class that actually has magic. And then they could use bow instead, along with that technically. But because of that mechanic, that enables you to build 4 vastly different archer units. Which, like, at first I was thinking to myself, I was just going to have my core 10 or 11 people and just, swap 1 or 2 out on occasion for the situation. Oh, there's a lot of forests. Well, let's skip the horses. Or, oh, there's a lot of stairs. We'll skip the horses. But actually now, like, now that I'm this far in the game and I'm starting to embrace some of those off-class weapons, it gives me reason to build up like a lot of characters. Like maybe I want a sword guy that has a bow so I can have a cheap, effective way to hit people from distances. Or maybe I want a sword guy that has axe as well in case they're going up against spears, that sort of thing.
No, I like it. And
I'm excited to get onto New Game Plus at this point, and hopefully you can do a harder difficulty then too, or I can.
Okay, because I'm not going to be doing a harder difficulty. I will say, though, I probably need to get on at least somewhat of a harder difficulty because I kind of beefed the fuck out of main character chick from the Black Eagle house.
Oh, yeah, I think a lot of people do that.
And
Getting Edelgard to be like really OP.
yeah, and she just one-shots everything now with her axe.
That is like a really common thing that can happen in Fire Emblem, especially because you have missions that are like, you have to do this before this turn is over. And you're like, well, okay, I guess I'm just going to move in. Like for me, it was Petra and Byleth. So Petra just walks in and everyone tries to hit Petra, but because her speed's so high, she dodges everything and counterattacks and kills everyone. And now Petra is 7 levels higher than everyone else. Whoops. Like that definitely can happen with Edelgard and a bunch of other characters too, especially because, you know, everyone can be any class.
Yep. So yeah, so Edelgard, she's they've got like the beginner rank classes, the intermediate rank classes, and advanced rank classes. Mm-hmm. She's the only person that I've got right now in an advanced rank, and it's still just straight axes. She said, oh, hey, I want to emphasize in this. I was like, no.
Okay, stick on your axes. I do think that the Lord class gives out some pretty good stat growth. I could be wrong on that, but that one I think is like authority and sword for the 2 required ones. But no, like if axe is working out for you, axe seems to be a pretty good weapon in this game. There have been past games where like axe was clearly inferior for like a large portion of the game. So it'd be like, well, why would you have axe? Because all the enemies have axe, so you should just bring in swords. But the rock paper scissors element of this game, at least on casual, seems to be downplayed a bunch, which honestly is kind of refreshing. Because that formula feels kind of stale at times, and it feels good to just be able to throw in a solid, you know, axe unit and not have to worry about a bunch of thieves that have swords.
Accurate. So have you been playing around with when you're in battles, how close and far the camera can be?
Yeah, a little bit. When I'm in handheld, I always have to be zoomed in. And when I'm docked, I usually zoom out, but sometimes I want to just see how cool my characters look, so I zoom back in.
So for the last 3 battles I've been in, I've just been in full zoom mode because I like the fact that if they have a battalion, they're literally running with their battalion by their sides. And I was like, oh, this is pretty nifty. It does have the one drawback. I can't tell what enemies are going to be attacking me. So if I am getting in range of enemy attacks, I'll zoom out for a second, re-put my person back where they're at and be like, okay, this guy's going to hit me. Hopefully they don't have a battalion because that's the one time I always get Bernie killed is because it's like, she's going to be fine. These 2 people are going to attack her, but it's cool because they're going to be attacking her from this distance, but she uses a bow because she's a sniper, so she's going to be able to hit them back. It's going to be fine. And then it's a battalion attack, and I'm like, fuck me. And then the second person comes up, and it's a battalion attack, and it's like, I guess I'll just rewind time and not put her there because that's not healthy for her.
But it definitely like adds some spice to the game because it's easy enough to just look at the purple grid and be like, I guess I'm not walking there. But you have to always factor in like, well, if they have a battalion, it might reach that skill might actually hit people behind its initial target.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the battalion thing is, I think, completely new in 3 houses. And I think it's awesome because that actually gives you a sense of like, you're not just controlling 10 different people. You're controlling like potentially 100 people. It's just that the soldiers are,
in the
assigned
background.
within a unit. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it's like I think one of the battalions I have set up, they're an archer battalion for one of my I like the fact that when you just do a regular attack, the archer battalion will actually attack the other people's battalion behind them. And I'm like, that's awesome. So it's actually like taking all of that into effect and the different battalion maneuvers and the boost I don't really understand because sometimes I'm thinking I'm too far away from another character with a battalion, but it'll still be like battalion boost and then show 3 characters instead of just the 2 that are standing next to each other. So I'm like, I accept this, I guess.
It's a good way of like making everything feel more epic.
Very good way of making everything feel more epic. But yeah, 3 houses. Those are kind of my thoughts on it. I'm enjoying it so far. I'm probably not going to beat it, but I'm enjoying it. It's a nice time, and I used to think I was doing okay until you told me the hours behind it that you and Scott are both.
Well, okay, so I should note that like a couple of those hours might be from me just leaving it on and leaving to go do something too. And also, I think I'm taking a painstaking amount of time during explorations, walking around and making sure no new items have spawned. Because as far as I can
Every time you
tell,
walk around.
yeah. What I think it is now is every month, like new month, items respawn in.
Oh, month, huh? I thought it went by week.
I thought so too, but I feel like I never find anything except maybe something I missed.
Okay. No, because that makes sense, because there aren't that many things after the first exploration.
Yeah. Because like there are some really critical items to find, like guidebooks or encyclopedias or something that increase your professor ranking.
How do I access those?
Once you found them, you're done, as far as I can tell.
Oh, no, excuse me. They're like little gifts that I have that give me a permanent stat boost +2 to luck.
Those you need to just go into your item inventory before a battle or when you're planning classes, before you plan classes, like when you're just deciding what to do, you just move the item directly into the character's inventory that you want the effect to work on and then use it from there.
Oh, okay. So I got a bunch of those that I've just been wanting to toss in, but haven't.
I'd recommend like saving some of them because you might find yourself in a position where you have a unit that is like just borderline really good, and you're like, man, if only they had 3 more strength, or if only they had like a bit more speed. Those extra items can really do a lot of good in like making an okay unit become a great unit. I'd also save your charm for a reason that you'll find out later.
Not going to touch charm then.
So, and charm is, as far as I can tell, not really that necessary. I think it helps with your battalion skills quite a bit in terms of might, maybe, or like damage, maybe. But I think authority, the skill, also has quite a bit to do with that. But more importantly, the battalion effects for me, I think the actual effects themselves are more important than the damage they put out.
Like the being able to make sure the units in a line of 3, anyone that you hit behind won't be able to move for that turn.
Yeah, that's super powerful. Like they'll still attack if they're in range of something, but that like enables you to start moving in weaker units like mages or bows without the recourse of having to worry it, or you can use it as like a saving, like a save, if you will, that like, oh shoot, Bernadette is in range of this character, but if you go and use onslaught or one of those moves that keeps them from moving afterwards in their turn, you effectively save Bernadette from getting hit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool strategies that they're essentially like spells, if you want to think of it that way. They're like AoE magic, because magic in this game is actually more of like a weapon, right?
Yes.
So it has absolutely refreshed the way I look at the series from like a gameplay mechanic. But I don't know. I don't have too much else to say that doesn't get like real deep into spoiler territory. So I want to save that for some far time in the future where we all have a little more knowledge, or we've all maybe gone through the game once.
When you and Scott go through the game once, because, I'm probably going to get to the 5-year skip and just be like, okay.
I mean, you're
out
still
now.
pretty far compared to where I was in 12 hours. So I think you're actually moving at like a reasonable pace. And I bet I just take too much time walking around and talking to everyone and taking notes like on a notepad,
Oh God,
a computer
you're taking
notepad.
notes on a notepad? I'm just.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm taking wild guesses. They're like, do you think this is going to be it? Yeah, that sounds vaguely familiar. I think you're right.
I gotta take notes
Start the
because
catacombs.
tea times are so important, and I want to be able to like answer things correctly and get the perfect tea times to ogle Raphael, whatever his name is. His shirt is bulging, like he's such a man that
He is such a man. I will say I like the fact that I can just walk up to every character and be like, is this your lost item? 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 Is this... Because I'm not going to read, oh, this belongs to someone who likes to sing. Is this your lost item? Is this your lost item? Is this... Hey, this is your lost item. Cool. And I'll be like, oh, your motivation's all the way up. I'm not going to try and give you any kind of lost items. Going
Yep.
to the next person.
and so that's part of it too. Like if I have a suspicion of who I think an item's for, I'll jot that down in a notepad, and then I won't even try if they have high motivation, right?
If they got high motivation, it's done to me. Like, nah, you're good. You're going to accept all the classes that I give you on Monday. Now, if you got 1 or 2 motivation, here we go. If you don't have any lost items, best believe that we're about to eat together.
Sagart and cream or whatever freaking options there are. Some weird dishes.
There are some very weird dishes. I do like the fact that when they say there's this special thing going on this week, it's literally just that special thing for that week. So, like, the fishing tournament was a good time. Where it was like, oh, man, you're going to participate in the fishing tournament? Cool. We should do a side bet. Like, I got you. I got you.
Then you do side bets with like 7 different people.
Yes.
And then like one of the first fish I catch is like the 5-star fish. So I'm like, well, okay, I guess I don't have to fish anymore for this fishing tournament.
I think I ended up using 30 of the 50
Holy
things.
cow.
I was just bored, and so I play I play this usually at night. So I usually get into bed about an hour before bed, and then I'll just do whatever for the hour. Unless a battle's about to come up, then I'll just do a battle for however long it takes to do the battle and maybe a little bit of exploration. And then I'll just go to bed, and that's my night. So it was quite literally, all right, guess we're fishing. And guess what fishing doesn't take up? Any of the time slots. So I'm still going to have 5 after I get done with this. Let's just fish for an hour.
Did you, do you know that you can actually pass 2 different fish?
You can pass 3 different fish.
Oh, can you do 3?
Yep.
Okay.
The line will break on the 4th fish. I did it twice. And after the 4th fish, you lose your bait.
Gotcha. That's, just wanted to make sure that you knew that you didn't have to go for the small guppy each time it showed up. Did you get experience, or not experience, but professor rank experience with the fishing tournament bait?
No.
Okay.
No, I did not.
All right. I don't feel so bad then, because like fishing is one of the primary ways to get professor rank in this game, I feel like, but it just takes such a long time.
It does. It does. Unless you're rocking all perfects, baby. Rhythm games for the win.
But I don't think okay, yeah, that does speed it up, just because then you'll have like a couple less
Actions to
button presses.
A's to push.
But it's like 10 experience for a small fish, a small blue fish, 20 experience for a large blue fish, 30 for a red fish, and then I think it goes back to 20 for a goldfish.
Which is really weird.
Yeah.
So I usually just wait. I'm only hitting A on red fishes unless by the fourth one they've all been blue.
Right.
Otherwise it's just like, oh, that one's red. Booyah. Let's go.
But I had like 2,000. So I was on the last chapter of the teaching year, and I had like 2,000 experience away from A+ ranking, and I was out of actions. And I'm just like, I'm not going to leave at an A with 2,000 points left, which by that point in the rank, it's like you're not a sliver, but like you're maybe 4/5 of the way to the next rank. So it feels like not that much. But having to catch approximately 100 fish to get that was pretty painful.
I would imagine so. That's why grinding is always a painful thing to do.
Yep.
But no, yeah, I like the little activities. The fact that answering the notes from students and alumni gives you a nice little thing that you can do things inside that exploration that don't take up the 4, 5, 6, 7 actions that you get eventually. I think I'm only at like 6 actions right now that I can do, but I think I just got there.
Unless there's like some special mechanic, 9 is the max.
Okay.
So it's significant what you can do. And partly why I'm like kind of regretting doing all of this grinding is now that I have 9, I don't know how to use most of them. It's like there's no clear goal outside of like, I guess I'm going to have 9 tea times with a character. Like a single character.
It's like, yes, I will have tea with you. Yep, I'll train with you.
Hey, do you want to have some more tea? Because I don't even care what you train. That's maybe the worst part in terms of the game design is that I feel like all of like the school life aspect once you get later into the game doesn't feel like it's nearly as important.
I was gonna say because you keep up the same formula after the 5-year skip, right?
Yes, unless something else happens. I'm like a couple months into the skip, and you're still doing the same thing. Despite
So are you still at the cathedral?
Maybe not.
No, you told me I washed up on shores of the cathedral, so yes, you're still at the cathedral.
But who's to say that the cathedral, maybe you have to leave?
Because there's a big war going on between the 3 houses at this point. So
is there a big war going on between the 3 houses?
Yes.
I don't know. Can my voice get any higher?
Excuse me, fancy Ramen audience. Yeah, spoilers ahead. Yes, there's a big war between the 3 houses. I haven't even beaten the game and I know this. Otherwise, why would they call it 3 houses?
Because there's 3, like the ending is going to be like after the, post-war cutscene where there's only 3 houses left standing. And I don't mean house from the lineage familial way, but rather a structure way. 3 houses.
I do like the fact that this did like recreate the beautifulness that was when Pokemon Go first came out, where everyone was like, what team you repping? Team Mystic, Team Valor, Team Instinct. Ugh. But now it's like, I knew one of my friends was playing, so I was just like, Black Eagles, baby. And he's like, what? I was like, what house you repping? And he's like, Black Eagles. And we gave each other a secret handshake, and it was like, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad because I did not concede to doing the one house that the 2 of you were not doing, but I absolutely do not regret that decision because Black Eagles by far seems like the best house. You have such a great cast in the Black Eagles, and having met a lot of the Blue Lion cast or whatever the blue house is, the Iron Lion, I don't know. A lot of them are not nearly as interesting to me. A lot of them are like really okay. What it feels like to me, and this might not mean much to you, is that the Blue Lions feels like classic Fire Emblem characters in which like basically we have a bunch of character writing from like the SNES GBA era, where it's like there's not a whole lot of depth, but they don't necessarily have to have depth. You know what I mean? There's a degree of interest and like second dimension to some of the characters, but I feel like Black Eagle has way more depth and curiosities laid in throughout that house. And Golden Deer also has a bit of that too.
Just looking at the pictures of all the blue lions, I think Dedue is kind of the most interesting looking one. Mercedes has the most interesting name, but she also seems like the most cut and dry character, and you might as well just replace her with Ingrid. They're both the blonde chicks with long hair.
Yeah. I don't know. The most interesting characters are on Black Eagle and Golden Deer for sure.
They look like they got the most interesting characters. Just Bernie. The fact that whenever she's being down on herself, she actually says Bernie out loud. It's like, what are you doing, Bernie? He's gonna kill you now. I'm so sorry.
You went and did it again, Bernie.
It's like, today just seems like the perfect day to sit in. It's such nice weather. It's so good to just shut yourself inside. I've literally said that in real life, just IRL before, because sometimes it's like, oh, it's perfect outside. It's like 70 degrees, light breeze. I'm going to turn on the Xbox 360 and play some video games because no one's going to come in and bother me when the day is so nice outside because they're all going to be outside. And Bernie literally says that. And I was like, yes, she gets me. And that is when she became my favorite. Yeah. This is a good game. Anyway, I'm gonna let you go. Unless there's something else you wanted to discuss. Are you playing anything else?
Nah, more Suikoden 5. That's about it, though.
I can dig it. How's the stream going?
Good. I mean, fairly typical at this point.
So,
People
no
come,
Blue Apron yet?
What's that?
No Blue Apron yet?
No Blue Apron. Nope. No sponsorships yet. We left the typical end notes in the last part, so we can probably just do a very quick version of it now. Comments, questions, emails, podcast@fancyramen.com.
Definitely watch Neil play at twitch.tv/fancyramen TVTW.
Whoops, no, I think that might have gotten fat-fingered in 1 sec.
Yep, Fancy Ramen TV. You can find me when the next Call of Duty comes out at /cookieskmilk, CUKISKMILK, and Jay Frey is still here all day. Jay Frey all day.
He streams all day too. That's the most intense thing. In real life streaming, coming to you live. All right, that's it for episode 127. And by that's it, I actually mean that's it. Part 2 complete. Have a great week, everyone.
Scrambled eggs.